The most popular golfer on the planet has a problem that money cannot fix. Bryson DeChambeau has tens of millions of fans, 2 US Open titles, and a YouTube empire most professional athletes could only dream of. He also has a contract that is about to expire, a league that is collapsing, and a road back to the PGA Tour that could cost him an entire prime season. He has finally spoken about what comes next. Here's the full story. To understand the weight of what DeChambeau is facing, you have to appreciate just how good his timing was at the start, and how badly it has turned since. When Bryson signed with LIV Golf in the summer of 2022, the deal was reported to be worth at least $100 million. At the time, it looked like one of the smartest moves any golfer made in the entire LIV era. He took the guaranteed money, he kept winning, and he transformed himself from a divisive, science-obsessed figure into one of the most beloved entertainers in the sport. His YouTube channel exploded into a genuine media operation, racking up millions of subscribers and hundreds of millions of views, with content that made golf fun in a way the buttoned-up professional tours never managed. By any measure, Bryson DeChambeau won the LIV era commercially. But the ground has shifted underneath him, and now the same contract that made him rich is the thing boxing him in. In early 2026, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund confirmed that it would stop funding LIV Golf at the end of the 2026 season. The league that had spent billions disrupting professional golf was suddenly fighting for its existence, scrambling to find outside investors to survive into 2027. For most LIV players, this was alarming. For Bryson DeChambeau, it created a very specific and very awkward problem, tied directly to the structure of his deal. DeChambeau has said publicly that he is contracted to LIV through the end of the 2026 season. He said at a LIV Media Day in Florida that he was contracted through 2026 and that he was excited about the year. On the surface, that sounds like good news. His deal ends, he becomes a free agent, and he can go wherever he wants. But the reality of how the PGA Tour handles returning LIV players turns that freedom into a trap. Quick pause. If you think Bryson DeChambeau made a brilliant career move that his YouTube fame will protect no matter what, type "he's fine" in the comments. If you think he is about to lose a prime season he can never get back, type "big problem." I read every single one. Here is the mechanism that creates the problem. Under the PGA Tour's current reinstatement rules, a player who leaves LIV must serve a 1-year ban from the date of their final LIV competitive appearance before they can play in PGA Tour events as a non-member. So if DeChambeau's last LIV event is late in 2026, his 1-year clock does not even start until then, which means he would not be eligible to return to the PGA Tour until late 2027. That is an entire major championship season effectively erased. The Masters, the US Open, the PGA Championship, the Open Championship, all of it, gone for a player who is one of the biggest draws in the sport. And it gets worse, because DeChambeau had a chance to avoid this entirely, and chose not to take it. In January 2026, the PGA Tour offered a returning member program to 4 LIV players who had won majors since 2022. Brooks Koepka, Cameron Smith, Jon Rahm, and Bryson DeChambeau. The program offered immediate reinstatement, with financial penalties attached. Koepka took it. He swallowed the cost and returned to the PGA Tour at the start of 2026. DeChambeau declined. He said he was contracted through 2026 and seemed content to honor that commitment. The window closed on February 1st, and weeks later PF pulled its money. So now DeChambeau is in the position he could have avoided, watching the value of his decision erode in real time. The PGA Tour's CEO Brian Rowlap has made clear that the returning member program was a one-time thing for a specific moment that has now gone away. There is no equivalent offer on the table. The expedited path that Koepka used no longer exists. If DeChambeau wants back, he goes through the standard 1-year ban, and he does it without the special conditions that the January program provided. So what did he actually say about his future? When DeChambeau broke his silence on the situation, his message was a careful mixture of optimism and uncertainty. He acknowledged that he wants to play the best players in the world as often as possible, that he wants to be at the majors, that he wants his career judged against the strongest competition golf can offer. He has spoken about his desire for the game to come back together, for the division between the tours to end, and for the best players to be able to compete in the same fields again. He framed his future around hope, around the possibility of reunification, around the idea that the powers running golf will eventually find a resolution that lets players like him compete where they belong. But underneath the optimism, there is an honesty about the uncertainty. DeChambeau cannot control whether LIV survives. He cannot control whether the PGA Tour creates a new pathway. He cannot control the timing of his own contract's expiration or the reinstatement clock that follows it. For a man whose entire approach to golf has been about controlling variables, about measuring and calculating and engineering every possible advantage, the position he finds himself in is uniquely frustrating. The one thing he cannot science his way out of is a contractual and political situation entirely outside his hands. There is, however, a genuine silver lining that separates DeChambeau from every other player caught in this mess, and it is the reason his situation is not as dire as it might be for someone else. His YouTube empire is a commercial fortress. While Jon Rahm, Cameron Smith, and the other LIV players caught in the funding collapse depend largely on competitive golf for their relevance and income, DeChambeau has built an entirely separate identity as a content creator. His channel does not need the PGA Tour. His audience does not disappear if he misses the 2027 majors. He films challenges, breaks records, and entertains millions of people in a format that exists completely independent of any tour. If he spends a year outside professional competition, he will still be one of the most visible figures in all of golf, still drawing enormous engagement, still building his brand. That commercial buffer changes the entire calculation. For most players, a lost prime season is a catastrophe with no upside. For DeChambeau, it is a competitive setback cushioned by a media business that keeps him relevant and wealthy regardless of where he tees it up. He is, in a strange way, the LIV player best positioned to survive the league's collapse, precisely because he spent his LIV years building something that does not depend on LIV or the PGA Tour at all. Still, the competitive cost is real, and DeChambeau clearly feels it. He is 32 years old, entering the years that should be the peak of his career. He has 2 US Open titles and the game to win more majors. Every season he spends outside the strongest fields is a season he cannot win the championships that define a legacy. The YouTube fame is a gift, but it is not a substitute for the green jackets and claret jugs he is capable of competing for. No amount of subscribers replaces a major championship. His breaking of silence, then, is the statement of a man trying to stay positive while acknowledging that his future is genuinely uncertain. He wants reunification. He wants to play the best. He wants the game to heal its divisions. But he also knows that the timeline is not his to set, that the decisions will be made by people in boardrooms, and that the year he might lose is a year he can never get back, no matter how many videos he posts or records he breaks. The Ryder Cup adds another dimension to what DeChambeau stands to lose. He has been one of the most compelling American players in recent Ryder Cup history, and his absence from the team picture while he sits outside the PGA Tour and the official world ranking system is a genuine loss to the United States cause. The 2027 Ryder Cup will be contested while DeChambeau is potentially still serving out his reinstatement timeline, meaning one of America's biggest stars and most enthusiastic competitors could be unavailable for the event that means the most to him on a national level. For a player who has spoken passionately about representing his country, watching the Ryder Cup from outside the team room would be its own particular kind of pain, separate from the missed majors and the lost ranking points. There is also the matter of how the wider golf world perceives all of this. DeChambeau has worked hard to rehabilitate his public image during the LIV years, transforming from a polarizing figure into a beloved entertainer. But the longer the tour division drags on, and the longer he remains on the outside of the established competitive structure, the more he risks his legacy being defined by the years he spent away, rather than the championships he won. The US Open titles are real and permanent. The question is whether they will be the headline of his career, or a footnote overshadowed by the chapter where the game's politics kept him from competing at his peak. Bryson DeChambeau bet on LIV golf, and, commercially, that bet paid off beyond anyone's expectations. But the final chapter of that bet is still being written, and right now, the most popular golfer on the planet is waiting, like everyone else, to find out where he gets to compete and when. The money came, the fame came, the clarity about his future has not. If this laid out the full situation for you, drop a like before you scroll away. It tells the algorithm to push this to other golf fans trying to follow the story, and subscribe, because this saga is moving fast and there is a lot more coming.